Alright, what is up guys? N84 here and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing a kill count video for Hellfire Hades 2 1980's Voodoo. And if you haven't already, go check out the first movie, go check out the second movie. It's a good time, you won't be disappointed. And also go check out Will's channel, he's the mastermind behind it all. So go give him the credit he deserves because these movies are not easy to make. They take lots of hard work and dedication. So shout out to anyone who's helped produce and star in the films. And also, if you're somebody who just doesn't have the time, you can't put that much time and effort into watching both movies, you can watch the kill count episode I put out a while ago, and then you can watch this one as well. It's a more shortened and condensed version, and it's a lot easier to watch. But go give Will his credit, man. I'll leave all the links in the description below, and they'll be throughout the video as well. But without further ado, ladies and gents, let's get to the kills. The movie begins in good old Hades Woods in 1980 something, and we get introduced to two brand new characters in Jason and Michael, which I'm pretty sure is just reference to Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers. But hey, personally, let me just tell you, hey, I'm not mad at it. But essentially, they're just trying to find out what happened to the upperclassmen from the previous film and summon the Slayer of Saints himself, Hellfire Hades. And after searching around in the cabin for a little while, both Jason and Michael find exactly what they are looking for. So they summon the Slayer of Saints himself, and after a brief second, they believe it to be a dud after nothing happens for a couple of seconds. And then, after hearing some chains in the distance, the two begin to get a little scared like, anybody would. So then, Hellfire Hades hits Michael from behind. Pause. You know what I meant, okay? Don't be childish. You know what I meant, all right? I'm sure I'll leave it in the video. I'm sure somebody will chuckle because of it. But anyways, with Michael being laid out on the ground, now Jason sees the Slayer of Saints himself eye to eye, and me personally, I would have been gone because he picks up Michael and he splits him in half in a pretty comedic and funny way, which I can appreciate. It's pretty cool. But then Jason, he scrambles. He gets out of there, as he should. But it's not the ending for our good friend Michael. I really appreciate this kill because of the special effects. But it's going to lead to our first death of the film, and Michael being split in half and stomped on, which leads us into a news report, which is kind of just a recap of the first film, the events of everything, and the aftermath of the groundskeeper who is now being framed for the murder of all the children in the first movie, which then takes us into this really cool and inventive title card. Like, look at this, man. This is cool. This is quality. I love it. And we get introduced to our first character of the film in Freddy. He's Eddie's brother from the previous movie. And fun fact, if you actually watch the movie and you listen to Freddy's mom in the background, it might sound like a familiar voice because it's actually Bethany, who played as Mary in the first film. Fun fact. And now we're in Southfield High, and we get introduced to even more characters that we'll be following throughout the story. And we get a nice little interaction between both Chris and Mike here, where they kind of have a bit of an arrangement where it's like, hey, you do this for me, and I'll do that for you kind of deal. And we get introduced to another character in Penny, which I can really appreciate the outfit. The wardrobe is fantastic. Surely inspiration was taken from the movie Clueless.
Ew! Get off of me! Ugh, as if!
And running late for class, we have the last member of the Voodoo crew in Morgana. Love the look, iconic, scene stealer. Reminds me of Cherry, just more crazy, but I'm not mad at it. But after being dismissed from the classroom, all the students are now in the hallway, and the Voodoo crew is discussing plans about after school. And you can see the director in the background, which reminds me a lot of the movie Scream, where you can see Wes Craven as the janitor. And surely that was on purpose. I don't know. But while discussing their plans, the Voodoo crew is interrupted when a student is just mourning and just absolutely devastated by the loss of the one and only Chad quarterback. Because, I mean, come on, look at that guy. Who would miss the king of Southfield High? Just iconic. A real loss. Hopefully we see that guy again one day. We'll see. And after school has ended, the Voodoo crew all arranges to meet together so they can drive out to Hades Woods in this nice minivan. And yeah, So then we cut to the groundskeeper and the sheriff, and the groundskeeper is trying to explain that he's an innocent man, he didn't do anything wrong, and he's just trying to clear his name and tell him that this is all just one big misunderstanding. But it only gets him so far. But then we get this really nice scene of all the Voodoo crew all together on a bit of like a little road trip montage, which I can really appreciate as someone who has done some vlogs in the past. But the Voodoo crew finally arrives in Hades Woods, and they finally see the cabin, because that's where they're going to be spending majority of their time in this movie. So we see each member of the Voodoo crew enter the cabin one by one, and kind of just see their overall impressions and thoughts of the cabin from first glance. But it really gives you a nice insight of each character's personality and kind of just, you know, their overall vibe, if that wasn't already clear and established from the start. And after looking around for a bit, Chris stumbles upon a VHS tape, but it's no ordinary VHS tape. It's one of Hellfire, Hades, Attacks in 1980's. Go watch it. It's a good time. But yeah, Freddy and the gang sees it, and they get kind of curious. But Chris and Morgana is going to watch it, where Mike kind of does his own thing, and we get a nice and wholesome scene of both Freddy and Penny kind of just having like a very heart-to-heart conversation. And I really appreciate it. You know, not all the characters are just stuck together at all times. They're all split apart, and they can all kind of breathe, do their own thing. And we get like a bit of a flashback, which this takes place before the events of the first Hellfire Hades movie, where Freddy is telling Penny about, you know, some history that he has with Freddy, which I kind of think it's pretty cool. And after a while of just sitting there for a bit, Penny pulls out nothing other than the devil's lettuce, because, you know, getting baked is so cool. But it's a really fun scene, man. If you haven't watched it, go watch it in its entirety. It's a good little fun watch. It reminds me quite a bit of the scene from The Breakfast Club. Short scene, but very impactful. And after the little smoke session, Mike begins to go pursue Penny because he has feelings for her. That was kind of the arrangement that Mike and Chris were talking about earlier in the movie. And after being shut down, Mike begins to have himself a little hands-on time. And it's a funny scene, I'm not gonna lie. And let me just tell you this, both Chad and Cherry would approve.
Chad, your fingers are so big.
And Mike gets interrupted when he sees someone in the distance, and it's no one other than good old Jason, who did survive his encounter from earlier in the film. And we cut back to the cabin with all the other characters, and Freddy sees the Book of Hades. But it leads to a pretty funny scene, a very interesting one.
A voodoo! And prove the existence of Hellfire Hades 2. 1980's Voodoo.
He said it! He said it! There it is! There it is!
But the Voodoo crew, they kind of just start chanting just random spells, just having a bit of fun. And it's a cool little montage scene. And I would just say watch it in its entirety, man. You're going to laugh or smile at least once. It's a good time. But one of those spells sends our good old friend Chris to the future. And I guess while they were filming this in real time, there was actually an Amazon truck in the background that you can see in the reflection, which was pretty cool. But he goes to like this videotape store, and he sees it's out of business, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty funny. Very meta. I can appreciate it. And we get a pretty cool cameo from the director's sister, Kat. And let me just tell you guys, Kat is very talented, very kind heart, man. And she also does the cool artwork for both the first and second movie. So if you've ever liked these like cartoony like outros for the credits, she's responsible for those, man. Give her some credit. She's great. But the Voodoo crew does a spell that transfers their bodies. And let me tell you this, man, this was the scene that made me procrastinate doing this video. I'm not gonna lie, I think I had a stroke while doing this. But yeah, man, Mike and Morgana swaps bodies. Penny switches bodies with Freddy. Chris switches with Penny. And Freddy switches with Chris. I know if I had a hard time, I'm sure Will had a hard time with the direction of this script. It was rough. It was rough. But they all do a really good job playing different characters, so I can really appreciate and respect it. And it reminds me a lot of the Scooby-Doo scene where all the characters swap bodies. It's pretty funny. It's pretty cool. It reminds me a lot of that, so shout out to that. But before they get the chance to swap their bodies back, they hear something outside, and it's none other than good old Jason, who's been running outside all day trying to avoid Hellfire Hades. And we get this pretty cool shot with the fire in hand, and it's gonna lead us to our second official death of the movie, and Jason being absolutely cooked, toasted, burned, fired, whatever you want to say. He got it. But Morgana's a bit too curious. She wants to see Hellfire Hades for herself, because keep in mind, Mike and Morgana have not switched bodies back yet. So Mike is still in Morgana's body and Morgana is still in Mike's body. So it's kind of unfortunate that Mike has to go out like that because of Morgana, and we get a scene of them transferring bodies back, but it's just a little too late because Morgana goes out there and gets her guts absolutely rearranged, which is going to lead us into our third kill, and it's a pretty gruesome one, man. But we see that all the other characters have returned back to their bodies. Penny is Penny again, Chris is Chris again, and Freddy is Freddy again. But Mike is still in Morgana's body. So yeah, because he has no body to go to now. And Mike begins to crash out because, hey man, me personally, I would do the same. You know, I'm not mad at Mike. And we hear a knock at the door, okay? We get a knock at the door, and it's none other than the Slayer of Saints himself, Hellfire Hades. So we get this nice scene of them putting up a seal to hold it off, very Doctor Strange-esque. But we return back to the groundskeeper and the sheriff, and the groundskeeper is fully just on edge now. He's trying to persuade the sheriff, if you let me free, if you give me the opportunity, I will prove you wrong, I'll prove my innocence, just let me out of here. And it's quite convincing. And we return back to the cabin. They're all mourning Morgana's death, and it's a sad time, man. Everybody's sad now. It's not cool. And they're trying to determine what their next course of action will be. And you know, just what are we gonna do next, man? Somebody's dead. What are we gonna do? But then we get a little surprise through the window, and it's a rock. It's a rock with a little note on it from Hellfire Hades himself, playing a bit of mind game since he can't get through the seal. And you know, the artwork, we love his artistry skills. It's cool. We love it. And once they look back through the Book of Hades, they get like a little bit of a memoir of sorts. They get to look back, and it's kind of like some world building where you get some exposition essentially, and I like it. And you know, after realizing, okay, I'm not getting through this seal, but I got something else up my sleeve, Hellfire Hades, he decides to spawn a demon himself. He says, hey, you guys want to play this game? I got nothing but time. I got nothing but energy. Somebody's gonna get killed tonight. So yeah, you guys are in for a big surprise. And we return to the cabin where Chris and Penny are both watching a very intimate hand-holding scene from Chad and Cherry through the VHS tape from Hellfire Hades. And it's a good watch. I would highly recommend you watch it. And we cut to Mike with the Demon Destroyer 9000, which is supposed to be a bit of a trump card that will be used to get rid of Hellfire Hades if the occasion does come. That was kind of what they were essentially saying, where, hey, if you hook me up with Penny, I'll build you guys this. And now we get introduced to the demon that Hellfire Hades has spawned. And let me just say this, man. This guy is very creepy, very unsettling. Stinkibus is a fantastic character. The makeup is good. The body language is fantastic. It's just very creepy, unsettling. And yeah, man, he's an absolute scene stealer. And unfortunately, he does get hit with that Jeff Jarrett guitar special by Chris, who comes in to save the day. And if you don't know who Jeff Jarrett is, I will put you on. So they tie up Stinkibus, and he talks his stuff, man. He's standing 10 toes down. He's talking his smack. I'm not mad at it, but it does get him hit with that Jeff Jarrett special one more time. And Chris returns to watching Hellfire Hades, Attack the 1980's tape. Go watch it. It's a good time. Get those views up. But he's getting a little frustrated. He's trying to get to a specific part, and it makes sense. So he starts to fast forward it. I understand. But we get a nice interaction between Mike and Freddy. And, once he gets to the part that finally sparks his interest, then he begins to tell both Mike and Freddy to come over and look at what's happening. And to his surprise, he finally sees his big brother on the screen. None other than Unsteady Eddie himself, played by JT, the man, the myth, the legend. And while viewing the tape, Freddy sees Eddie's actions and hears everything that he is saying, and it's just a slap in the face to him, man. It's just very disheartening, you know what I mean? And after seeing Eddie get killed off, he's very distraught, he's very sad, and Stinky Bus now is broken free because Penny wasn't watching him at the moment. So he breaks free and he's about to get his get back, you know what I mean? Because now they're trying to jump him, but I mean, he's built different. He does this, he's him. So, he's not going to go down easily. He gets his get back and he finally hits somebody else with a guitar, giving somebody else that Jeff Jarrett special. And we notice that Mike's fingerprint is not working because he's in Morgana's body. He doesn't have his own fingerprints, so the Demon Destroyer 9000 will not work. And when I tell you, watching this live during the premiere with everyone, my jaw was on the ground. I was shocked. I was devastated. But it does lead to a pretty gruesome death, and Mike finally bites the big one, and it leads to our official 4th death of the movie. And it reminds me a lot of the death scene from the movie Scream, where Stu Macher gets the TV smashed on his head. It's very similar to that, essentially. And yeah, basically, he was only instructed to kill only one person, so he just dips out, and that is the last that we see of him throughout the film. Scene stealer, great man. So once more, the Voodoo crew now looks through the Book of Hades, and they find a resurrection spell in hopes to bring back Mike, because that's what friends do, So they're trying to bring back Mike, but it doesn't necessarily bring him back, but it does bring back an iconic character from the first movie in Cherry Pop. And man, this was really cool. I like this scene a lot. It's so fun. And it's a cool sight to see. Cherry's confused. She's telling them the last thing that she remembers. And once they hear a knock on the door, Cherry believes it to be Chad, her lover, her man, Chad Quarterback. But once she opens the door, she gets a very, very not so cool, not so chill surprise, because it's the Slayer of Saints himself, the Demon Lord from another realm, Hellfire Hades, at the door to pop her cherry again. And it's sad. Very similar to Avengers Infinity War, where Vision dies, he comes back, and then dies again. That's kind of how I'm going to do this. I'm going to count it again. But after seeing Cherry get her head smashed in, the Voodoo crew decides to take off through the back door and flee because, obviously. So after running outside for a bit, Penny gets a chain wrapped around her ankle, and it's not going to end very well for her, unfortunately. She's going to get tripped up, and she's going to get dragged away into the darkness. But it's not going to be necessarily a kill. But yep, we're going to have a scene that's very reminiscent of Chad and Cherry. And, Chris is going to kind of sacrifice himself to buy Freddy a bit more time. So I really like this scene. It was like a kind of like a cool little mirror scene, if that makes sense. I like it. It's pretty cool. And it does lead us into this very cool scene of our good man Chris challenging Hellfire Hades to a guitar duel. It's very campy. It's silly, but in like the best way possible. It's just a good time. You can't be mad at it. It reminds me a lot of the movie Crossroads with Ralph Macchio. Most of you will probably know him as Daniel LaRusso from The Karate Kid, or you know him as Johnny Cade from the movie The Outsiders. He's an all-star. He's an icon. We love Ralph Macchio. Good man. But ultimately, the battle does come to an end where it's like some mutual respect. But Chris, you still gotta die. He's impaled with a guitar, and you kind of feel bad for him, man. You really do. We just jammed out. We had like a bit of a mutual bond, and you're just gonna kill me like this? Sad times. But yeah, man, that is going to do it for our man's Chris. We're just gonna wait for the camera to pan back on him to confirm the death, and yeah, there it is. Number 6, Chris, dead. So now, finally being alone, Freddy, he's losing his mind. He doesn't know what to think. All of his friends are gone, his brother's gone. He's just alone, and it's a sad time. And then we get this really, really iconic scene and a very cool cameo from none other than, you guessed it, JT as freaking Unsteady Eddie. And I'm going to tell you guys this, man. I'm going to be honest. Get this man an Oscar. Get this man a Golden Globe Award. The performance that he put on right here, the monologue that he delivered, words can't even explain it. Just know he was truly in his bag, okay? Everybody on set had to have been impressed because JT put on a performance of a lifetime. Give this man his flowers. But it wasn't actually JT. It was none other than Hellfire Hades himself. It was all an illusion. It was all for play. But I do really like the scene. It puts aside all the comedy and campiness and just puts on a great performance from everybody in the scene. And of course, Freddy is being saved again by good old Penny, who did not die, dragged away, but not dead. And we get a really nice wholesome scene of Freddy just saying, man, everything just falls apart around me. Everyone suffers because of me. And Penny just having another heart-to-heart, explaining that, everything's going to be okay. I care for you. We're going to get through this, man. Just get your ass on the boat with me and we're good. But unfortunately, Freddy just takes too damn long and Hellfire Hades rises through the water and it's going to cost Penny her life. And shout out to Penny here because, man, going in the lake at night while it's raining, I respect it. I respect it. I cannot imagine how cold you must have been, but it's going to add you to the kill count. Lucky number 7, dead. I'm so sorry, Penny. But we return back to the cabin because Freddy, he's all alone now. So he returns back to the Book of Hades and hopes to find something that will put away Hellfire Hades once and for all. And he finds something. Pretty interesting thing, a voodoo doll. Because if the movie's title wasn't explanatory enough, I don't know what to tell you. But it does come with a cost. If you take Hellfire Hades out, you're also going to take yourself out, man. So it's a double-edged sword, essentially. And he might have to make the ultimate sacrifice to save everyone. And it's a pretty bloody scene, I'm not gonna lie. It's not for everyone, but it's brilliant. Peak cinema. Absolute cinema. Peak. 5 stars, 10 out of 10. And we get a surprise from the good old groundskeeper with his shotgun because he's gonna put some shells in Hellfire Hades and put him down. But with the sheriff not too far behind, he sees Freddy on the ground, all bloodied and everything. He sees the cabin all messed up. And the groundskeeper, he's trying to explain that it wasn't him. Obviously it wasn't him. It was Hellfire Hades. I mean, just look at him, man. He's right over there on the ground, man. Didn't you just see me shoot him? Like he's right there. And then he looks over and, surprise, surprise, he is gone. So the groundskeeper is getting arrested again. It's funny, but it's sad at the exact same time. You feel bad for him, but you understand. And after losing so much blood, Freddy, he's going to finally decide to pass out here. And it's going to take us to a news report just kind of explaining the events of this movie, the victims that were killed, and the groundskeeper being arrested again. And we go back to Southfield High where Freddy, he's all alone. None of his friends are there, so he goes to bury some essential items, the voodoo dolls and everything like that. Makes sense, and it's a sad time. He's alone, he's sad. He only has his mom left. And after burying everything, it's time for Freddy to go home. It's time for a long nap and just time to relax, which it makes sense, why not? So Freddy returns home. He looks at the picture of all his friends that he's lost on this trip, and it's sad. So he decides to sleep it off because, he deserves it. He's been through a lot. But just as he's about to go to bed, someone comes at the door. An unexpected guest. He believes it to be his mom, but nope. It is none other than the demon lord from another realm, the slayer of saints, Hellfire Hades, coming back for revenge, and that's going to take us to the end of the movie. So now let's get to the numbers. So I count 7 kills, 4 for the guys, 3 for the girls, not counting Freddy because it's not confirmed. With a runtime of 2.5 hours, that's going to be 150 minutes, with a kill on average every 21.42 minutes. I'm going to give the coolest kill award to Michael because I like the special effects and it's pretty gruesome, I like it. And I'm going to give the Bummer Summer award to Jason. Not even because it's bad, but I think it might be the weakest of the bunch. It is pretty creative, but I think the others just stand out a bit more, so yeah, that's the video.